A reading from the Gospel of Matthew. Then the Pharisees went and plotted to entrap him in what he said. So they sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are sincere, and teach the way of God in accordance with truth, and show deference to no one. For you do not regard people with partiality. Tell us then, what do you think? Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not?" But Jesus, aware of their malice, said, "Why are you putting me to the test, you hypocrites? Show me the coin used for the tax." And they brought him a denarius. Then he said to them, "Whose head is this, and whose title?" They answered, "The emperor's." Then he said to them, "Give therefore to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's." When they heard this, they were amazed, and they left him and went away. Here ends the reading. As I prepared this meditation, we have been living for almost 8 months with the challenges of COVID-19, have been experiencing societal and racial upheavals in a socially and politically polarized atmosphere, and are only weeks away from a contentious election. In the midst of all that, I am fully aware that I have Christian friends, family members, and perhaps even some of you listening today who hold radically different political views than I do, and to whom I owe every bit of love, respect, and faithfulness, all that I can muster, quite apart from politics. So I'm struggling to find a way forward, struggling to do what I believe Jesus asks of me in this week's gospel lesson. Give to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's. On its face, this passage from Matthew's gospel is about taxation. The Pharisees, some of the Jewish leadership, and the Herodians, followers of King Herod's family, attempt to entrap Jesus with clever question. Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not? The Pharisees see the tax tribute as anti-nationalist capitulation to a pagan emperor whose coin blasphemously proclaims him divine, while the Herodians, as collaborators with the Romans, see refusing to pay the tax as treasonous sedition. So answering the question yes or no is a lose-lose proposition. In response to the question, Jesus requests the Roman coin with which the tax is paid. And he asks the questioners, "Whose head is this, and whose title?" And they answer, "The emperor's." And Jesus then offers his answer. "Give then to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's." I take that to mean that loyalty to Caesar is limited and relative. Jesus is not suggesting that there are two kingdoms, secular and divine, which are competing for our loyalties in some sort of equal way. Caesar's realm exists within the moments and love of God. Caesar ultimately is accountable to God, as are all of us. God doesn't necessarily support Caesar or any emperor or legal system. All emperors, all empires are subservient to the eternal reign of God, the creator of the cosmos and all that's in it. We can hope that our national loyalties mirror Lincoln's sentiments when he said we need to pray that we are on God's side rather than God on our side. So what then do we owe God? As human beings created by God, we bear God's image, which means, if we keep the analogy going, that we owe God everything, our whole and entire self. What can this mean in these hard days when families, communities, and churches are splintering over political and cultural differences that seem unbridgeable? When a scorched earth, ideology-driven, the end justifies the means divisiveness reigns within American Christianity and society. When I look to Jesus to think about how to practice my faith in the political realm, I see no path to glory that sidesteps humility, surrender, and sacrificial love. I see no permission to secure my prosperity at the expense of another's suffering. No evidence that truth-telling is optional. I see no kingdom that favors the contemptuous over the brokenhearted, and no church that thrives for long when it aligns itself with power. Christians have spilled much ink over America's current political situation. Every argument and counter-argument has been made ad nauseum, and as far as I can tell, no one, myself included, has the heart to listen to our opponents with genuine curiosity or compassion anymore. But maybe this is exactly the place where Jesus' teaching becomes the sharpest and the most relevant. As an image bearer of a loving, forgiving, and gracious God, maybe what I owe God in this hour is the very grace and generosity he extends to me and to all of us. Figuring out my taxes and my loyalties is the easy part. What's much harder is living out my political convictions with a Christ-like humility, with a compassion that embraces those with different political views and commitments as brothers and sisters. If I really belong to God and really am fashioned in God's image, then I need to practice my faith and my politics in ways that reflect who God is, whether I like the current resident of the White House or not. It's not a question of backing down, being dishonest, or watering down my beliefs. It's a question of remembering that the essential nature of God, whose image I bear, is love. So yes, by all means, give the emperor the things that are the emperor's. But remember that our first and overriding loyalty is to God, who will remain long after the earthly empires rise and fall. As those who bear God's image, our first and highest commitment is to reflect God's love in all our relationships. As all who have tried this way of humility and love have found, it is not an easy journey. But it is the only way to bring light and healing to this dark and hurting world. May God give us the grace and the courage to walk in this way of love.